Hi, I'm Anna Paula Mumi, and I'm the president of Sparrow Stuttering, and I'm here with my friend Daniel Shaw. Daniel, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah. I've been a speech therapist for 18 years now, and I work primarily in the pediatric population, except for when it comes to stuttering, which thankfully I get to serve any age that wants to be served.
Awesome. Well, we are here today to talk about StoryStream, which is Sparrow's newest resource for bibliotherapy with children who stutter. And so I'm going to just begin by asking you, Daniel, how long have you been using stories in therapy? What maybe was the catalyst for you starting that, or just whatever you'd want to share as far as how you got started, and then maybe what was the reason why we put this together. So,
Well, it's interesting because part of the reason that I contacted you and started asking some questions about maybe a bibliotherapy resource had to do with my own interest in learning.
mhm,
So I've been interested in counseling and a lot of different methods of getting at some of the hard to discuss stuff for younger kids, or even kids that just don't have the vocabulary yet to talk about thoughts and feelings and things like that. And interestingly, at least for me, is that a lot of the methods, say like art, for instance, or writing exercises, journaling, and things like that, are wonderful ways of getting at having those kinds of conversations when just having a more direct counseling question reflection conversation may not be as easy to have, or for those kids who might not want to have direct conversations about themselves.
mhm,
And so I've had plenty of kids that would make a comment and I would say, that's really interesting. Yeah, tell me more about that. Or I might just reflect back what they said. And hearing me say that back, like hearing their own words back, made them kind of bristle a little bit, or to say, I'm not sure that I want that out there, or I don't like the way that sounds. And so I've
mhm,
had plenty of kids that just had a hard time having a direct conversation. But if you could talk about it vicariously, if you could talk about another kid, or, like I love the question that says, what kind of advice would you give to a friend about, XYZ? And a lot of times they can tell you about that. But if you ask them, what do you think you should do, or what do you want to do, that more direct line may be really hard for them or intimidating. And so those kinds of methods have been things that I've practiced and found really, really helpful um, with those kinds of kiddos. But bibliotherapy isn't something that I've done for a long, long time. Um, and so I originally reached out to a number of clinicians that I really respect and who do a lot with stuttering. And I said, what kind of books are you using? Um, and and how are you using them? And so a number of people gave me these beautiful lists of books and a lot of books that I'd never heard of, hadn't read myself. And so that got the process for me started in thinking, well, how would I use this? And for me, the hard part was just the getting started part, because a lot of the stuff that I'm doing with books is really similar to other things that I've done. Um, I'm just learning to apply it in a different way and to kind of use a different vehicle.
mhm. Yes. So, just to introduce the resource itself, I'll just talk briefly about how we came about putting it together with a handful of SLPs who are using stories on a regular basis. And really, what we did was just collect a list of books. We have a brief synopsis of what the book is about, and then we provide some therapy ideas and just extension activities, just ways that an SLP might think about using that book. And then we also came up with some potential themes. So, offering some possible uh, ways that you could go with that book. So, areas of focus or themes that might come up in discussion. And, like you said, Daniel, where it might be difficult to talk about it directly, it may be easier to talk about it indirectly through the lens of that character. So, did you want to give us an example of how you've done that?
Yes. So, and of the books that came back, I bought a number of them And one of the ones that I bought that was recommended by a good friend, Voon Pang, um, was this book, The Boy Who Tried to Shrink His Name. So I have that wonderful book here, and maybe I'll just go through a little bit of it just to give kind of a taster of some of the themes that jump out.
Hmm.
What's fun is as you get more familiar with the books, you also kind of get a sense of questions that you might want to ask that are relevant for particular kids. So you can really take these books in lots of directions depending on how ready your kid is, how much they can really delve into the topics.
Hmm.
Or and the great thing too is that this book has nothing to do with stuttering. So this is about a boy who the author has, if you notice, the author has a long name herself. And so the boy's name is Zimdalamash Kermishkada. And I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I got all the syllables in there.
There you
Um,
go.
and so he says, my name trips me up every morning like long shoelaces that always come undone. And so you get these great visual depictions of his relationship with his name.
Hmm.
And so the next page talks about how he's going to school. So he's getting dressed for school, and he's like, I need a shorter name. And so there's kind of the introduction to this idea. And so it has beautiful descriptions and these fun pictures of how his name, he's trying to keep his name contained, keeping it short, and then it just kind of explodes in all these different ways. So he has one where he's got his name kind of in his backpack, and you said the strings out there, and then immediately this girl introduces herself and says, "My name's Ellie. What's yours?" Poof, and so now his name's like filling up the bus. Um, One of the cool things about the book when you're discussing it is they're just these everyday kinds of things. Like, you can ask, well, what do you think he's afraid of? What does he think is going to happen? So some of it is just sort of trying to get inside the kid's head. What are his
Hmm.
motivations, essentially? And you're trying to figure out, you can predict like the next time he's in class and they say pair up, and so they're writing their name, and he's got his name all rolled up in a ball. He's got it together, and then all of a sudden, the girl says, "How do you spell your name?" And then bang, it's out again. So this happens over and over again. And in this relationship, the friendship that they have, one of the cool things is he's learning to become braver. And as he's learning that, he's also getting more comfortable with his name. He's willing to say more of his name, you'll see. And so you can ask kids about, like, for instance, um, what do you think he was afraid was going to happen? And that's the chance to get at, maybe someone's going to laugh or someone's going to mock his name or things like that. And because this is so applicable, you don't have to talk about stuttering really directly much at
Hmm.
all, because a lot of the stuff parallels. And one of the things that I say with parents a lot is when we're working on helping kids with develop self-regulation or resilience, we don't necessarily have to make it about stuttering, and it doesn't have to be resilient in relation to stuttering. It's just resilience because it's the same system. And so if I can build up resilience in one area, it's probably going to bleed over into things that might be stuttering related. And so the same for this, that when I'm building up the idea of getting brave about saying something that's hard or something that might feel embarrassing, um, just those really natural feelings of feeling afraid that someone might find out. Um, and you can ask questions depending if you think if you feel like this is a good idea. Sometimes you want to kind of tread lightly. Um, but I can definitely ask questions like, well, do you ever get afraid of anything like that? Is there anything that's hard for you to do, or hard for you to say, or something like that? And gives so you can just kind of talk through as you go through the story because the story just kind of unfolds, and so you can kind of follow the characters, and you can ask them to kind of insert themselves, but you can also kind of unpack the kid and his motivations, and what kind of things was he doing to hide? So you've got this great theme throughout that's all about hiding, and that's so like stuttering for a lot of
Hmm.
people. Um, there's this desire to kind of hide to keep it under wraps, make sure no one finds out. And so the idea of using strategies to hide really fits well as a theme. And
Hmm.
so talking about that and what was really helpful in the end, as you get to the end, when he's skateboarding and he's willing to say a little bit more and a little bit more, and you've got this really cool theme of how you've got this bird here And by the end, when he's really willing to say his name, the the bird is enormous. So you see like the feathers, you get this wing, and eventually we get to the end, and there it is. Cat's out of the bag, so to speak. And
Mhm.
so you're kind of walking kids through, and you're just asking curious questions. You're asking them to interact with the story. You're thinking about a couple of those themes. And so if you're newer to this book or just newer to figuring out how would I tackle this, that's the idea of the story stream PDF, is that you could just look at that really quickly and go, oh, here are a couple ideas. So I've just got those ideas in my head to kind of walk the kids through as we go. Um,
Mhm.
and the more comfortable you get, the more you kind of branch out with that. But it's the idea is just to help as a starting point and to be kind of a quick planning strategy when you're like, okay, I've got this book, I've got a couple ideas, and this was just going to start us off. And we can kind of, take it as we go in the session.
Yeah, I love that. And that's just and like you said, there's so many parallels and you can really go different directions. And I think what's beautiful about books is you can really individualize based on where the child is, right? And so
Mhm.
it might look very different using it with one child versus another child because it depends on where they are and just so many different factors that are relevant. And we do preface just at the very beginning of the PDF, we do preface, um, how to think about approaching different children who may not be ready to talk about certain things, or just like you said, treading lightly depending on the situation, and just really being um, wise about, how we approach that, making sure that you have read it, that you're familiar with it, that you don't just take our word for it, right? And really make sure that it is a good fit for that child. But
Mhm.
anything else that you would want to share?
No, but I really want to reiterate what you were just saying. Um, the vicarious learning
Mhm.
from books is just so valuable. And so knowing that you really don't have to press or go anywhere necessarily, you don't have to or go anywhere. You don't have to get anywhere in particular, um, because you're using the book as a launching point for having these conversations about topics like that, and having and just being braver, kind of being able to talk about things through a character, like themes of hiding and things like that, um, have a lot of value. And it also can be a way of supporting parents in saying, here are some more books that do that sort of thing too. So parents are also learning how to have
Mhm.
conversations about this. And so you can model some of that. You can share ideas or starting points with them as well, um, so that they're really getting not just this once a week or twice a week, whatever it is, conversation, but they're really getting that support from the parents, and the parents are building that because that's really where the change is going to come. Is this that day-to-day support from parents who know how to support their children?
Right, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time and just sharing that. And if you are interested in downloading the PDF, it's available on our website, sparrowstuttering.org, under the resource library, clinical resources. You can just look for Story Stream, and we hope it'll be helpful to you. Thank you.